Today we're going to be talking about the number one mind game a narcissist plays with you that they want you to believe. We all know that there are plenty of mind games that narcissists play. In fact, narcissists are notorious for playing mind games. They are the ways in which a narcissist keeps us engaged. It's the way a narcissist speaks to us that makes us doubt our reality. It's the way a narcissist smears our name behind our back and triangulates us, right? It's the way a narcissist gets to trigger our abandonment trauma. It's the way a narcissist projects their own wounds onto us. It's the way a narcissist accuses us of things that they are guilty of, right? That makes us wonder, are we crazy? So when you're involved with someone who has high narcissistic traits, the relationship has run a pretty predictable pattern. You've met a narcissist in most cases, in lots of cases, not in all cases, except in the case with the covert narcissist who can come off as pretty shy and very vulnerable and very introverted. If you've manifested a overt narcissist, you have bumped into somebody who is grandiose, who seems very confident, who seems maybe even very intelligent, or you don't know at the beginning of the relationship that they're not as intelligent as they really think they are, but they want you to believe that they are, right? So they're engaging. They're telling you how beautiful you are, how sexy you are, how you're the most amazing person that they've ever met. The love bombing is coming on thick. You're feeling seen for the first time. If you struggle with codependency and you grew up feeling invisible, this is intoxicating. If you have an issue with relationship addiction, to be seen by a narcissist makes you feel alive. If you've got rescuer tendencies and the narcissist begins to tell you about their problems, because narcissists tend to come along with a sob story. So if you have rescuer tendencies and you came from a home where it was your job to take care of the rest of the children, maybe mom was an alcoholic or dad was a gambler. But if you've learned to take care of people and you bump into somebody with high narcissistic traits and they start telling you, first they hook you and tell you how great you are, and then they start telling you all of their problems. You might be apt to, oh, this poor baby, let me take care of them and fix all their problems, right? That's what feels good to you, right? It makes sense to you. This is an activation, right? This is familiarity. Your brain knows how to do this thing. Your brain knows how to take care of someone, right? And if you're struggling with codependency, what will end up happening is you're actually getting your identity needs met by catering to the needs of another person. So you feel alive and you have a sense of purpose because this person has now given you something to work with, right? Now you feel important. Now you feel like you have a sense of value because you're taking care of somebody. And this is a very codependent, slippery slope. And if this dynamic gets activated with a narcissist, no bueno, it is going to be topsy-turvy for a very long time in your life until you can get out of this dynamic. So we're talking about the number one mind game a narcissist will play with you. For what reason? Let's understand why they have to play a mind game in the first place. A narcissist requires a source of narcissistic supply. So it's like a car. It can't go unless it has gasoline in it. So if you liken your attention, right, even whether it's positive attention or negative attention, it's like gasoline in the narcissist's car. Like a car will sit there, it cannot move unless it gets gasoline. A narcissist, to feel alive and to feel okay and to be able to function in the world, needs a source of narcissistic supply. And in most cases, a narcissist has more than one source of narcissistic supply. So there will be a primary source of narcissistic supply. You may be a primary source of narcissistic supply for a temporary time. And when and if the narcissist perhaps gets bored of you, or if you start setting boundaries, or if you start to starve the narcissist on narcissistic supply, or let's say, God forbid, you get sick and you have a need, and you expect a narcissist to show up for you, that's going to create a huge conflict in the mind of a narcissist because in their fantasy construct, they come first and you serve them. You understand that they sit on the pedestal and it's your job to worry about them. It is not their job to worry about you. They can't do it. They just simply can't do it. So If you want to stay in a narcissistic relationship with a narcissist, make sure you don't get sick. Make sure you don't have needs. Make sure that you don't have some need to be taken care of or to want to be heard, because it's going to wreck the dynamic. And so we understand, right, that a narcissist needs narcissistic supply. And you are a source of narcissistic supply, as are your children, is your mother, is your father, are your friends, and everybody that you know can become a source of narcissistic supply. And so the number one mind game I think that a narcissist plays with you is to get you to think that you're the narcissist. Certainly that they are not the narcissist, right? And so let's say they're very clever. So let's say you are getting the feeling like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. And you say to someone with high narcissistic traits, I get letters like this all the time. I think I'm in an abusive relationship and I confronted my boyfriend with this idea that cheating is not okay. And I'm very uncomfortable with him flirting with other women. Okay, sounds reasonable to me. If you're going to be in a committed relationship and you have these rules that you've agreed to, and the relationship will stay intact as long as the two of you agree on these rules, it sounds feasible to me that the girlfriend in this situation might be upset that these rules are being broken and that her sense of balance and security within the relationship is being brought into question by cheating. It makes kind of a lot of sense to me, right? So the letter goes something like, I confronted my boyfriend, I told him how I felt, I was shut down, and I was blamed for why he cheated on me. He brought up my last relationship. He said, well, your last boyfriend broke up with you. Maybe he broke up with you because you're X, Y, and Z, because you're so overly sensitive, because you're always complaining. Maybe if you were more blah, 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 I wouldn't have cheated on you, right? And she fell for it, right? She thought, well, maybe I am wrong. Maybe it is my fault that my boyfriend cheated on me. Another situation with another letter that I received from someone from YouTube was about how her husband would participate in these physical activities with other women, but because it didn't go all the way, it wasn't cheating. And he mocked her for daring to suggest that what he was participating in was cheating. He went on along to say that, well, lots of men do this, and your best friend tolerates this because her husband is doing that. So it's complete minimizing and devaluing and marginalizing the wife's experience of what her husband is participating in. And they turn the tables and suggest that you are the one who's selfish, that you are the one who, in fact, are narcissistic. You are the one who's hypersensitive. You are the one that's paranoid, right? So they take all of the traits, well, many of the traits that come along with narcissism, and they project them onto you. So you get accused of, like I said, being paranoid. You get accused of being overly critical. You get accused of accusing them of something that they say they're not doing. Caught red-handed. You could have the tape to prove it, that your narcissist was in the act doing something they shouldn't have been doing, and they are going to suggest it wasn't them. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. You will start to think that there's something wrong with you. Like, well, maybe men do cheat. Maybe all husbands act like this. Maybe it is my fault that my girlfriend or my wife is cheating on me. Maybe if I wasn't so X, Y, and Z, she wouldn't drink so much. Maybe I should understand her needs more. And you will get accused of being insensitive. You know that I have a problem with beautiful women. You know that it's difficult for me to say no to sexual advances. It's not my fault that I'm so beautiful and men love me. It's difficult to be a woman like me that's so beautiful and I have men throwing themselves at me. Do you know how hard it is to say no to that, right? And you're thinking like, well, maybe it is hard. She is so beautiful and she is so gorgeous and she's got so many great qualities. It must be hard for her to say no to these men that are showing up at work or who hit her up on Instagram. You start to doubt yourself. You think that there's something wrong with you. So I think, in my own opinion, although I recognize that there are many, 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 many mind games a narcissists play, at the end of the day, when you think about gaslighting, when you think about the smear campaign, when you think about projection, when you think about the phrases they use to get you to doubt your reality, like you're crazy, You're too sensitive. What's wrong with you? How could you say that? You're the reason our son has autism, Lisa. You're the reason that I don't have a relationship with my children, Lisa. And so on and so on and so on. The reason that they abuse you with with finances, the reason they don't disclose all the information, right? If you and then when you confront them, right? So you find out that they're not being forthcoming. They bought property you knew nothing about, right? Or they gave someone money or invested in some real estate you knew nothing about. Or they bought a female a car that you knew nothing about, or she put her so-called boy toy up in a hotel because his apartment needed to be fumigated, and you find out about these things, right? Guess what's going to happen? They're going to turn the tables and you are going to be called all sorts of names, because what they want you to believe is that you're the one with the problem. They are not the narcissist. You are the narcissist. They are not being selfish. You are being selfish. How dare you question them? Oh, and then they will question your love for them. They will question your loyalty to them, right? And so everything that they are guilty of, they project onto you. And in essence, if you think about what's going on, it seems to me, if you take a giant step back, what's really going on is an attempt to confuse you to the point that you question, obviously, your own reality, but you question whether or not you're the narcissist in this situation, right? There is this thing that narcissists do that will cause even the most logical person to break down. The gaslighting, the smear campaigns, the triangulation between you and your sister or your brother or a family member or a close friend, right? The insults that they throw your way. They suggest that your mother doesn't love you, your father doesn't love you, you shouldn't trust the people that you trust. Your girlfriends are jealous of you, and that's why you shouldn't hang out with them, right? Or you shouldn't trust your boss. Your boss has an ulterior motive, and the lies that they tell you, right? And then if you confront them, then you get hit with, you're not a loyal person. No, excuse me, Mr. or Mrs. or Miss or Mr. Narcissist, you're not loyal, okay? But what a narcissist will do is they will project their own narcissism onto you. So the number one mind game I think a narcissist plays with people who care about them, who work with them, and have a relationship with them is this idea that they are not a narcissist, and that anybody who confronts them or dares to counter them is the narcissist. And so it's really interesting when you get kicked out of this tornado. I always use this analogy because this is how I felt in my own life. When I was getting caught up in the tornado that was my marriage at the time, which was very dysfunctional, very enmeshed and codependent, I couldn't see myself. I didn't know who I was, right? I had globbed onto doing. I was a human doing, not a human being. I just thought that take care of this person, and she needs help, and she's sick, and that person's sick, and they need money, and that needs to get done, and the teacher needs this, and the school needs that. So my son needs this, my daughter needs this, my husband needs this, my husband's brother needs that. It was just constantly, I felt like an octopus that had all these tentacles, and my operating system was to take care of everybody else but the self. I had no ability to take care of myself. And of course, over time, I got burnt out and my body started to break down. And it was a really, 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 really challenging, difficult, probably the worst time in my entire life, except for when I was 12, because that was another traumatic experience. But when I was looking back at my life and trying to make sense of it, the analogy I used was being in the middle of a tornado. Now, if you think, like imagine a chicken, right? Annie M being caught up, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Imagine being a chicken caught up in the middle of a tornado. And this chicken has no idea how big the tornado is because the chicken is in the middle of the tornado. When the tornado begins to lose momentum and lose energy and essence, and it starts to calm down, the chicken ends up being thrown miles and miles away, right? But let's say the chicken gets kicked out for some reason. Just a window opens up, boop, and the chicken's able to get out of this tornado. the chicken ends up looking on the side of the road up at this tornado, and the further the chicken runs and looks over their shoulder, now they have perspective. They know how big this tornado is. When you are in the middle of a narcissistic relationship, it's all about conflict. It is all about ducking. It is all about avoiding further trauma. It is all about confusion. It's all about trying to make something work that doesn't work. If a narcissistic relationship was a car, it never drives. You're always pushing it. It always has a flat tire. You're always trying to find something to fix it, but it's not working. And if you're a codependent, your MO is to stay, right? You make excuses, it'll get better, I just have to say it this way, you stay stuck. That's classic codependency, right? You can have codependent traits in other areas of life, but if you're a true codependent and you struggle with codependency across the board, you are somebody who finds themselves inside a tornado-like experience and you don't know how to talk about how you feel and you don't know how to get out of this tornado-like experience, right? So when you're in the middle of a narcissistic relationship that feels like an absolute tornado, you don't know how big it is. You don't have perspective because you're in the middle of it. And the agenda of a narcissist is to keep you stuck. The agenda of the narcissist is to keep you in the middle of their tornado. And how do they do that? They keep you stuck arguing. They keep you stuck through projecting. They keep you stuck by accusing you of things that you're not guilty of. They put you in a position where you have to defend your loyalty to the narcissist. I would never say that. I would never hurt you that way. I would never. What? You think I'm cheating on you? I would never cheat on you. How could you say that? All narcissistic supply. And the tornado just goes round and round and round and round. And you are in it and you don't even know how big the tornado is. There's also this true element of being gaslit. And I've had this experience. I'm sure if you're watching this video, chances are you've had it too, where you're minding your own business and you're having a pretty normal day. And the narcissist just comes along and pours gasoline over your head, right? And you're thinking, he or she's a little ornery. What's going on, right? And out of nowhere, you get burnt. In other words, like you feel like you've been lit on fire. Like, what did you say? What did you do? You didn't, like, what? You might be put in a position where you have to defend yourself and you feel like all of your energy has just been sucked out of you because this person has deliberately needled you and prodded you. I think one of the worst things that a narcissist does, or someone with high narcissistic traits does, in my opinion, based on personal experiences, during the discovery phase of your relationship where you are, or the exploratory phase where you're sharing your vulnerabilities, your past relationship issues, maybe even experiences from childhood, right? You're just being vulnerable. You're just sharing. You might even have shared a time in your life that you're not so proud of. And by the way, we all have times in our life that we're not proud of. Okay? We all do things that we're ashamed of. Imagine that. It's okay. You're human. Okay? All right. But what a narcissist does is a narcissist finds out they are empathic in the sense that they can read your energy very, very well. They do not, however, they are not empaths with empathy. Two different things. So you can be somebody who can read a room and feel other people's emotions and exploit them. Just because you're highly sensitive and even, let's be called an empath, right? We've got to be very, very careful because the reality is that narcissists are very, very attuned to what you think and what you feel, and they can feel what hurts you, and then they exploit it. They take a big stick and they stick you with it. That's what they do, you know. And you know what happens is when you are wounded, you're like, oh my God, this hurts, and your amygdala gets hijacked, and you're immediately brought back in time. You feel like you're 6 years old, you're powerless, like, Mommy, why are you doing this to me? Like all that stuff gets activated, and you're not thinking. You're not observing, wow, what did this person just do to me? What weapon, emotional weapon, what spiritual weapon, what psychological weapon did this person just use against me to hurt me? You're not thinking, you're feeling. And so that's why it's really, really important. I think the work of Pete Walker is absolutely amazing. And if you struggle with like amygdala hijacks, if you struggle with CPTSD and triggers, that is a very useful book, because when you are struggling inside a codependent relationship and you have a narcissist who's playing this mind game with you, trying to convince you you're the one with the problem, then understanding what a trigger is and understanding what gaslighting is and what projection is, what emotional manipulation is crucial. Because, one of the things that you could do is you can start seeing people as, listen, I told one of my clients this recently, and she told me, well, Darth Vader was actually good. I was like, really? Like, I never really watched Star Wars completely. But anyway, I'd like to make complex ideas easy for everybody to understand, because this stuff is hard, and it was hard for me. So I'm just sharing the way that I learned to deal with these concepts and understand them more fully. And I remember the first time that I was able to hold on to myself, because I was getting caught on that bandwagon of reacting to what my ex-husband used to say, his passive aggressiveness, his criticisms, his devaluing and all of that, his withholding and stonewalling and all of that jazz. I used to get caught up on like calling him out on it and saying, don't you see how wrong this is? Like, we need to communicate, or that wasn't a nice thing to say. How could you say that, right? I never said that. That's not what I said. That's not what I meant. It was maddening. It was the car that was broken, and the two of us are trying to push a car up hills, It's not working. We needed to accept it, but we didn't know how. But anyway, I remember the time in my life where I began to recognize that the relationship was toxic. It was okay to admit it, and it was even okay for me to say, I'm unhappy. Imagine a codependent admitting that she's not unhappy. That was a big breakthrough for me. It really was. Not suppressing my feelings so much, learning to get in touch with my feelings, amazing. But anyway, I remember the first time he walked up the stairs after work, and I was able to identify weapons. What I'm trying to say was that I was able to identify these covert, secret weapons that he was using. I was able to identify stonewalling. I was able to identify questioning my loyalty. I was able to recognize when he was accusing me of things that I was not guilty of. I was able to recognize the twisting of the truth, right? I was able to recognize the lying. I was able to recognize lying by omission, right? Not telling the whole story. I was able to recognize the gaslighting. I was able to recognize when I was being triangulated with his family and how he was not setting a boundary with them. It was amazing, because it was like I'm standing in front of Darth Vader, and I understand that now. I understand that Darth Vader was actually a good character. I didn't then. But my point was, I was able to recognize, like, there's the weapon, And I literally began to envision him as Darth Vader and wondering what type of weapon he was going to pull out today. And that helped me disidentify from what was happening. And it really gave me the emotional and the conscious space to say, wait a minute, I don't have to let this land, right? I don't have to keep engaging in this toxic emotional warfare. I don't have to respond to the gaslighting. I can recognize gaslighting for what it is and go, wow, this is dude, you're trying to gaslight me? Okay, got your number. Okay, it's not going to happen tomorrow. And I slowly began to understand this whole dynamic. And for me, what changed my life was really becoming full on interested in what codependency was, the patterns of codependency, the traits that I had in me, and really becoming, super aware of why I had codependent traits, and seeing the patterns in my family for history, like generations of history, that had affected my mother, my father, and me, and my sister and my brother. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to control anyone else but yourself. And if you are in a relationship with a narcissist whose number one game it is to convince you that you're the narcissist, the only thing that you can control is ultimately yourself. And that's why I always like to include in my videos like this idea about how codependent traits and codependency can really have an impact on how long you stay in a relationship with a narcissist. And if you are struggling with codependency, then it is totally within your control to learn about that and to become less codependent more and more. To help you do that, you can certainly check out my books on Amazon. You can actually listen to them for free. There are links in the description box where you can actually listen to my books for free. What set me on my path to recovery was Melody Beattie's book called Codependent No More. Changed my life. And She's part of why I am where I am today. And if you're interested in really diving into how you can heal from codependency, check out my 12-week breakthrough coaching program. It'll help you uncover the patterns that are keeping you stuck. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for shining on, rocking on, and learning to become the best you possible. Namaste, everybody. Until next time, be careful out there, and bye for now. If you love this content, check out the next video, and don't forget to click the link below so you can take the codependency quiz. A form of narcissistic supply is manipulated through manipulating how you see them. And this is the way they remain dominant, and this is the way they remain in control, and this is the way they evade personal responsibility. And it's very destructive to a relationship because, again, I always say that when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, it's two people inside one relationship dynamic, but both people are worried about the one person.